Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another Brawhammer video, another reaction video. You guys loved the first one so much, we had to return for the part 2 with Thor at Pirate Software, making a follow-up to his original video, Stop Killing Games. A lot's came out over that time, like some business dealings and whatever else that he's had, which is quite interesting. I don't think I want to get into that on this one. This is coming out at 10 to 1 in the morning UK time, so kind of gonna do a quick flash react to this and see what he says. Off the top of my head, I don't think it will be worth much if he's not walking back some of the statements he said around re-architecting games and some of the core technical complexities of the initiative. It's not a bill. But yeah, let's just live react. Let's just jump into it.
Hi, my name is Jason Thor Hall, also known as Pirate Suffer, and the other day I put out a video called Stop Killing Games, saying why I would not support the initiative. Overall, it was actually quite positive. The analytics on it show that people really think it's a good idea.
That's quite surprising, especially with the comments that I had on mine. I had a decent number of Pirate Software fans coming on it and being like, I can't believe he's reacted like this, blah 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 blah. And yeah, he's a creator with 2.1 million subscribers and I got about 3,000 views on the last one, so it's a tiny sliver. But the most vocal people tend to be, you know, the most loyal fans and that sort of stuff tend to be the most vocal I usually find, so it's interesting.
Huge amount of like ratio, and I received hundreds of comments from developers thanking me for putting it out because they can't speak publicly while they're at a business or a job elsewhere. A lot of the time.
Yeah, my mate said my video was really good too. Yeah, I get it. Obviously, the guy has industry contacts and stuff like that, but I mean, I have a job in development and I talk shit all the time on my blogs and Twitter posts and everything else, and I see plenty of other game developers that put their foot in it. Yeah, it's a reason. I don't think I'd lead with that, to be honest.
Sometimes major companies will fire you if you are speaking out of turn and cause a PR disaster for those companies. And since this is such a popular thing among players, most devs aren't going to say anything to you. So I am. So let's discuss the most common requirement of the initiative, which is games have to be left in a functional, playable state. Now, what happens if that game is a online-only live service game? Well, if you want that to stay in a functional, playable state, that means the devs have to release either server binaries or somehow carve off the game to be a single-player.
So only live service games is what we're talking about here. So the crew, would GTA 5 suit? I don't know, maybe actually.
Experience now. Some way to keep it functional and playable, right? Now, many of you are requesting, yes, I should get the server binaries so that I can go and make private servers for this. But that doesn't make a lot of sense in the real world. And the reason why is because it leaves developers open to abuse. So let's explore that a little bit. Let's say that
it leaves developers open to abuse if you get the server binaries. Okay, so we're kind of excluding World of Warcraft, which was one of my main examples, so I'm going to use Battlefield 1, alright? So if I'm a developer, let's just make Battlefield 1, and I'm giving out the server tools, or Battlefield like 2 back in the day had dedicated servers, you gave out the tools, called it a World at War. You gave out the tools. Did we give developers abuse? Garry's Mod? I know Garry's Mod servers had an issue in terms of the source engine. There was a lot of crashing that was going on the dedicated servers and you needed support for it. But that was a game that's been actively maintained. If the company's going bankrupt, you wouldn't expect that, right?
That you made your own video game. And you made a live service game. Maybe it's an MMO, maybe it's something else, right? And let's say that I want to monetize that game, but you don't allow monetization of the game by any other party. This makes sense because most creators don't allow for that. You can't just take someone else's art and profit off of it. Normal, right? So then I go, well, how am I going to force you to do this? Under this initiative, you would have to release the server binaries or keep the game in a functional, playable state at end of life. So I hit you with a ton of bots. I hit you with a ton of exploits. I attack your community. I destroy your Reddit. I go after your business. I go everywhere that I possibly can to make this cost as much as it possibly can for you. And it's not hard to do this. We saw the exact same thing happen in TF2 recently.
T4's 2 plummets to over negative on Steam as biggest fan stoked with it was flames of anti-bot outrage. Oh, he's coming at it from an angle I didn't expect. So, the idea that the community, he's speaking of this from a sort of indie perspective, and I understand this, that you would inherently, you'd be making this game and you'd have in the back of your mind, I'm going to have server binaries to give it to customers if we go bankrupt as part of the new legislation, the new law that comes in. And then the community would seek to make sure that you secure no profit, you die as a company, and you can't support the game. I mean, it's certainly a reach. It's certainly a take. But I live in the. Should I be mean here? I'm only a minute into his response, 2 minutes into his response. We have an industry of gamers at the minute that support the practices of the developers that made The Crew, that will buy every Assassin's Creed game no matter how bad it is. They'll buy every Call of Duty game every single year. They'll buy FIFA games every single year and buy packs to the point where I'm pretty sure FIFA is the top grossing game that EA has ever made. Period. The Sims, the expansions that lock off content, it makes them tons and tons of money. And I don't think he's being fair here, because if he's applying this to indie, which I presume he is, because stuff like this, yeah, it would impact AAA business, but I'm not that convinced. We'll hear his arguments, but this law, this initiative did have provisions in it that you had to be a company of a certain size before any of this would even impact you in the first place anyway. Not that that stops it impacting the design phase of the software. We'll keep going.
Massive amount of bots that were attacking the game. This is not infeasible. This is something that is very easily attainable today. And let's say that this goes on long enough that your game dies because you can't afford it anymore, and your studio has to shut down. At end of life, you now have to release those server binaries to keep the game in a functional, playable state. At which point I take those, I create a private server, and I monetize it. And some people have said, well, simply don't allow monetization of the server. Well, who's going to enforce that? If you want a government initiative to enforce that, that means the government has to build a registry of all of those games.
No, I don't think they should even enforce that. I don't think that's a viable solution.
And all of that intellectual property that shouldn't be monetized, and then somehow enforce that with no one owning it because those studios have shut down. That's going to be a massive burden. On top of that, if you want to go the other route and say the company has to go and control it, well, what if the company's not around anymore? Is that just able to be monetized now? Again, this was obtained through abuse of the original creator. I don't think that's a good route. And this scenario gets even worse if you do allow monetization, because now I can just kill off your company and then monetize the server and no one will ever come after me. Now it's even more of a problem. So allowing monetization of this work is strictly worse. And for those of you out there that say, oh, this can be done right now, I could just destroy your studio and take your stuff anyway. You could, but this allows a route for it to be legal to do so. That's the problem. After putting this out publicly and talking to...
Let's address that for a minute. So this allows it to be legal to take down a studio. What? All this changes is it makes the release of the software legal. At the minute, I'm pretty sure, and again, correct me on this, I'm not a lawyer, but time and time again, people have reverse engineered software, they've been taken to court for it, and they've been proven to be fine because it's their own work on top of that, if I'm right, as long as you don't use any technology that exists in there that is patented by the company or created by the company. I'm pretty sure you don't get done for it. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure whenever someone cracks a version of Adobe and uses it for personal use, I don't think they're necessarily breaking the law. They might be in terms of like some sort of misuse act, now that I think about it. I'm sort of speaking openly here. I don't know about that. Like, it makes it legal. I don't think it would make it not legal or legal. Like, you have a studio. This is breaking my brain a little bit, as you can probably tell, and I speak, you know, on the mind, so to speak, on these sorts of things. So Pirate Software releases a game, Heartbound, and you want that game, you don't want to pay for it, you want to run the servers yourself if it had any. What you would do is launch a bunch of attacks on them so they can't make any sales, so that you would then get the game for free and whatever else. Like, It is a bit far-fetched, isn't it? It's a bit like not boycotting Tesco so the business goes bankrupt and they send all the stock to the food banks where you can get it for free. It's would this happen, right? Would this happen? I don't think. Is there ever a case of this happening ever? Like, you can make a game as a company, sell it to 10,000 people, not turn a profit, and then just disappear. And then Steam's left having to try and get the refund. If you've bought it through Steam, Steam's left trying to get the refund back to the customers, which in some cases means it's coming out of their pocket. I actually don't know about this. I think it's an extremely far-fetched principle, and it doesn't harp on any of his original points in his first video. It's a new concept that he's delivering here. Maybe he's just thought about this. I don't get it though.
People about it, this specific scenario on both YouTube and Discord and Reddit and a bunch of other locations. I got a couple of takes back. We're going to start with the most extreme position and kind of go from there. Okay. So in the most extreme, people said live service games shouldn't exist at all, and the initiative will kill them off for good, and that's a good thing. Well, no, you don't get to define what players get to play or not play. You also shouldn't be able to get to define what developers build or don't build. You should not have creative control over the developers, and
completely agree with you. I think live service is fine.
You should not have control over what is in my Steam library or on my phone. That doesn't make any goddamn sense. Aside from that, the initiative does not purport to kill live service games. It would just make it incredibly difficult to build said games and add a lot of risk to it, which is why I'm bringing all of this up and why I don't support the initiative in the first place.
This would affect this though? Is this a concern? As a developer, if I was making a project like I've done before, and I had to put the source code, right, we're talking extreme examples here, into escrow if the business ever failed, and then I had to release that code to the public so they could use it themselves. What if people just DDoSed my services? They'd be DDoSing AWS. In the world of cloud provide, like, I'm trying to, let's try and put my system administrator hat back on again. We're not talking about some company running a VPS in their basement. They're likely going to have, like, sort of sales pages through Steam and GOG and EA or whoever else is publishing it. So they're going to be taking on all the risk of having the project on in the first place. And they're going to have all the mitigation efforts to prevent things like bots, exploits, and I mean, you can't really stop the community from hating your game and want, like, but that's on the part of kind of like the Helldivers controversy. When they restricted logins and registrations or whatever it was to certain regions because of Sony. Like, if that company had failed and then they had to, but they wouldn't have because they had all the sales. Like, yeah, some people were refunded, but a lot of people got denied. Like, I don't know. I don't follow that, to be honest. I don't really, doesn't pass the sniff test for me. I've got a lot of talking on this point, and we're only 4 minutes in, so let's just keep going.
A lot of people don't realize that this will slowly diminish live service games in the market because it's not an incentive for us to build them anymore, which means you get less multiplayer live experiences. That sucks. I like live service games. I enjoy playing things like Final Fantasy XIV. Yeah. I enjoy going and playing in games in the past, at least, like League of Legends. These are games that are live service. They require a live service to run, and you shouldn't be able to take that away from people. And if that's your only position on this, not only are you disingenuous in what the initiative is purporting to try and achieve, but you're also aggressively attacking other players instead of trying to fix something. So the next one is that this is about games preservation, and that it needs to happen to preserve these types of games for future generations and for everyone to always have forever. But I would argue that this isn't actually preserving these games. Social games, such as, let's say, Apex Legends, require a number of players to be in the match at the same time so that you can have an experience that is only able to be obtained through lots of players interacting, right? It's a multiplayer game. You need a bunch of people. How many of you have felt negatively when an MMO dies or when a live service game dies? Oh, dead game. There's only 5 people online. Why would I play that? So why would you want to preserve a game in that state? That doesn't make any sense to me. You want
I don't know. Purely because I'm a solo gamer and I've never bothered about that. At most, I've always had around 3 or 4 friends that I'd play with, like back in the day of World of Warcraft guilds. I only had 3 or 4 people that I actually knew in that guild personally, that we played with, and then when it came to Call of Duty lobbies and stuff like that, it was maybe me and another guy. But most of the time, I've always soloed all multiplayer games, including Apex. I just play with pugs, which means I'm a sadist at that point because it's a horrible experience. So I don't know, my experience playing games is very different from Thor's, obviously, but his experience is very different from everyone else's. He has a community to play with. He can ask viewers whenever he wants to go and hop into games. He's obviously in a very social, cultural workplace. A lot of people turn up and do their 9 to 5 and their colleagues don't even know what video games are outside of their phone game. So it's I think it's hard to relate to maybe the majority. Maybe I'm not coming from the correct place. Whenever I see a TikTok and all that, and it's like, oh, me and the boys logging on after a hard day on Warzone, I never experienced that personally, but I still think Warzone should be preserved because I think if anyone wants to go back and play it, they should be able to. The argument is, if it's only you and 12 people in the game, is it really Warzone? Probably not. Probably not to the same effect. But people make it work. Communities do sort of like game events, you know, that all of this will hop on back on the Call of Duty World at War and give the game a fresh breath of life. So on one aspect, he's telling people the game is usually played this way, you don't get to tell people how to play the game. And on another aspect, he's saying you don't get to tell people how to play the game because you play it a different way from me. I don't know. But both sides have an argument here, I think. He's right. His Warzone experience won't be the same as mine. I'd probably be fine with a lobby of 50 people in it. As I said in my last video, I logged on to Call of Duty World at War. I got a lobby of there was 56 people online. I was somebody that played on dedicated servers in Call of Duty 4 and PC, where it was usually the same names that you see in the lobby. I didn't have a problem with that. It was absolutely fine. We still played the game. We still had fun. I've played couch co-op Halo with my buddies. I wouldn't have said that was a dead game because there was only 2 of us. Again, his point harps on it being a live service. Warzone has a live service. League of Legends, you had the same 20 people in a community League of Legends server, but would it matter? Probably, because you want to like climb MMR, but what if you just want to play League? Random bunch of people. Or on a random server. StarCraft still gets plenty of like people playing it, just like custom games, modded games and stuff like that. It's like keeps the game going, even though it's not properly supported by Blizzard anymore. Like, competitions and all that sort of stuff have stopped. I feel like he's right. Like, he is right. But also, your mileage may vary. I don't think it's necessarily a point against game preservation to be like, you won't have the same amount of people playing it, because if that's the case, just shut down Fortnite because it's not as popular as it once was. It's an argument against even having games exist in the first place, I think. Because games morph, games change. Like, I think we should preserve the states of them in terms of where they are as a project, and then the social element that goes along with it is a different characteristic that can be saved through content creators, their videos, that sort of stuff. It's like you want to watch a Michael Jackson concert these days, you can't, you have to watch the video for it. You missed out on that social epiphany almost of that creator. So I don't know. I feel like it's not a point. I'm sorry. I don't know.
Want to take down these live service games, put them up on a private server, and then play it with a couple of people. You're not bringing it back at its height. You're not taking a snapshot of what the game actually is. You're making it limp on in a way that doesn't make any sense. That's not preservation.
It doesn't make any sense to him, though. Game preservation is important. I think preserving things like Call of Duty World at War is really important. It would be the same as Warzone if it was created in 2024, you know? World of Warcraft is a live service game. People wanted the old versions of it back. That is game preservation. There's only a few handful of people playing it now, but they enjoy it and have fun. It's not the same as when World of Warcraft first launched, but guess what? Nothing ever will be. Lives change, society changes. Back in the day, you'd have to go through these fights and learn as you go. Nowadays, you can bring up a Wikipedia article and get the entire lore of the game, the entire insight of the game, how you fight bosses, how you do certain missions, walkthroughs. I remember playing Dead Rising when that first came out, and I had to watch a YouTube walkthrough to get through certain bits of the fight. But before that, maybe in the old Xbox generation, before people had easy access to internet, even though that console did come with Ethernet, that wouldn't have been a thing. You know, content creators weren't a thing. YouTube wasn't a thing back then. So I don't think this is an argument against game preservation. Just because the societal impact is gone doesn't mean anything, really.
And for those that may stop there and go, but private servers going to have a lot of players. Look at all the ones for World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about that. It opens up a route for abuse of the developers, so that is not a solution. And the last...
That's not an argument, though. His argument can't be the community is going to bully Blizzard into giving them server tools. That can't be an argument. That is an argument for every company that exists, for everything. We don't like Tesla, so just bully Tesla into, like, they don't even make money. I don't know. I don't think that's an argument. I'm going to put myself out here and say that's not an argument at all. Not with the way the gaming community is these days.
Last take that I got from this is, and it's the most reasonable to me, this is an initiative. It's not a law. Why are you upset? Just wait. I'm not going to wait.
You watch my video?
And the reason I'm not going to wait is because I see the start of this conversation not making sense. It's not including the actual developer side of the conversation. It's not showing the trials and problems.
So what Thor's going to do is silence Ross, Accursed Farms, and tell him to fuck off and call him disgusting. That's a good way to have a developer enter the conversation, isn't it? And I'm pretty sure Accursed Farms have been in touch with developers about this and wouldn't just be doing this because fuck the devs. Alright, I'm a developer, not a game developer, but I like the initiative. I actually hope this comes to web development as well. Personally, I think we're losing far too much.
Problems that this could arise inside of the gaming industry for people who are actually making the games you play. I don't have any reason to be quiet about that. And many other developers aren't going to be able to speak on this. As I explained before, it's really easy to lose your job if you're working at a major studio and try to speak out of turn on something like this, especially with something people are so passionate about. Doesn't make any sense to stay quiet. And it also doesn't make any sense to wait until it's in a different form when I see that it has so many problems with the language as it is currently written. I should be able to be talking about this. In fact, I should be talking about this. I am a content creator specifically that is a game developer that has worked in this industry for 20 years. This is my wheelhouse. This is what I do. So for those who are calling for me to just be silent and sit in the corner, no.
No, nobody's doing that. They're asking you to enter the conversation in a constructive way, and coming out here and again, I'm not trying to be mean, right? But coming out and saying this isn't going to work because all gamers are just going to bully people into, like, do you like an article came up, right? I'm going to admit I watched Asmongold's video on this. Alright. But it came up that game developers hate gamers. Alright. And that has been a rumour or a silent belief that I've held for quite a bit, that on some level that's why game developers don't provide support for their applications and that sort of stuff anymore, because back in the day you could phone at Activision Blizzard to try and get support for software that you were running. You had proper game masters that were actually located in the US that you could actually get help with, spawn in the game and help you. But I think they started to hate gamers because they would just ask for items and free time and whatever else and just waste people's time and stuff like that. Which is, yeah, it's a thing, but it's just what you got to put up with as a company. I mean, you got to support the people that pay for your product. So I think, weirdly, I don't know why, but when it said that, it looped that conversation in my head. So, oh, I'm a game developer, I know what I'm talking about, I know this industry, and the people that support me and buy my games would not hesitate to, at a moment's notice, shut me down and steal my software. It's like, What? It's a bit of a self-report of your own views on your audience there, I think so. Personally, I'm not worried about that. If people were like DDoSing my websites and services so that I couldn't turn a profit on them and I had to shut down, I just don't see that being a thing. Unless they're getting through Cloudflare and AWS and whatever else, and that's not a challenge, by the way. And again, the community aspect of just people just not wanting to play a product, that's wild. I don't know.
All of that being said, I do think there's a consumer protection thing that we can fix here. It's just not really what the initiative is about. I think that if you're going to buy a live service game, you shouldn't be told you're buying the game. You shouldn't be told that you're purchasing the game.
This is pointless because it's just accepting the status quo but putting wording around it that means it's now legal to do what they're doing. The reason why software is at this point is because politicians have been so uninvolved in the process for years now that they've just gotten away with it. This is just the de facto standard. It is now a thing that when you go out and you buy Photoshop, you buy a game, you buy whatever, it's now a license rather than ownership of that specific copy of the game and all the assets therewith included in all of it. I feel like legally you could be far better protected as a consumer, and I'm not a lawyer, and Thor's not a lawyer, so I don't know why both of us are sitting here going, you can't provide the source code for the game and you can't protect that in law. It's like GTA 5 source code was leaked a couple of years ago. The Twitch source code was leaked a while ago as well. Neither which has seen, clones or copies spawned up from that. And if you say kick, I'll kick you out of the chat because it's not a clone. It's an IVS product. It's meant to look like that.
You should be told explicitly that you are purchasing a license to that game. The reason why is because that license needs to be revoked anytime that you are cheating at the game and damaging the play experience of other players.
What if a private company doesn't like you? What if they find out that your views aren't compatible? If you're discussing in League of Legends all chat, as people like to do, about politics, and your conservative views aren't accepted in there, and they just ban you because you're discussing politics, but the other guy didn't get banned, you have no recourse to any sort of help or consumer protections whatsoever. They just revoke your license because you agreed to the terms of service. And I'll always defend people that I probably wouldn't agree with to have their rights respected in that sense. I think I should be able to mute the person so I don't have to listen to them, but I don't think they should be banned from the game eternally because someone on the moderation team doesn't like them.
While this is written in the TOS and the EULA, it's usually not clearly defined at point of sale. Or they throw a giant TOS in front of you and it doesn't really do anything because people skip past it. If at point of sale it says specifically, there's specific language stating that you are either leasing or purchasing a license or anything along those lines, that you're not actually buying the game directly, I think it would go a long way to informing consumers of what they're doing. And
would it? Like, people will still buy it because that's the only option they have. The only option being buy a license from us is not an option. It's just status quo. It's de facto. It's what you have to deal with. This is the problem. He said, if you don't like live service games, don't buy them. But if all of the games I love and all of the IP that I love goes live service, I'm shit out of luck.
Protect them from some of these business practices that they didn't realize they were engaging in. That makes a lot more sense to me than force all developers to leave the game in a functional, playable state. And that's about it.
Yeah, building software to last is such a bad practice, isn't it? Like, I'm sorry, like, if this is done from the design phase of the software, I don't see why this is a problem. Have a government service where you can put stuff like this in escrow, and then if the company falls over, the government releases it. It would take, like, I'm not going to say no effort, because what happens is, when we consider these things, we go, League of Legends, apply all of this law to that, but it's not a retrospective law. It would only be for new games going forward, and probably those after 2035. We wouldn't see the impact of this for probably 10 years. Laws don't work that way. They don't just come in on a day and then all companies from then on have to apply to it. Helldivers now has to be a different game, and I think in some aspect of it, you might see an improvement in games if they have to be built a certain way. If they have to be built for the consumer, I think that can be quite nice. Or am I just stupid there? Like, maybe this harps on Thor's point that he likes the way games are built now. He likes the way that they're set up, and he likes the way to play them. He doesn't want to see that change. So any law that would impact that change by making things more consumer friendly, he doesn't like, because it would potentially change the game at a core level. So League of Legends wouldn't be the way it is now. It would have an element where you have to like put in a server address or tick which box you're connecting to, whether it's official servers or whatnot, and then that might change how the matchmaking's done. Maybe there's no rank services. I don't know. I don't think it's an issue.
That's all I really wanted to talk about with this. I hope that's clarified some things for some of you and some of the dangers that this can cause.
No, because he did a tirade about client server and how League of Legends has to be client to client. Like, I'm sorry, he's not addressed the fundamental aspects of him being wrong in his original conversation. He's not spoken at all about how Accursed Farms Ross was disgusting, to be honest. He's not addressed any of that. I think his comments were wildly inappropriate for another creator. I think you can have that discussion with them without throwing your toys out the pram. I'm sorry.
As it is currently written. If you're still mad about this, not much I can do about it. Outside of that, I'm going to be gone for the next 4 days, so if you expect me to respond or anything like that and you think I'm ducking the issue or hiding in some way, I'm not. I'm just in Vegas because there's DEF CON going on, which is a hacking convention, and it's the first vacation I've had in 5 years. I can't wait to see my friends out there. So with that in mind, see y'all later.
He's not really addressed my points in my video, and I know it was an hour long, and this one's 32 minutes, so I'm just going to wrap this up quite quickly. I'm going to read some comments just to see what happened. The only reason TF2 is the book is because Valve it's supposed to run private servers. Yeah, exactly. TF2's had, like, the bot thing he mentioned before in TF2. It's a really good point, actually. Yeah, private servers saved that because matchmaking was unplayable, so you could play on authorised private servers with communities, admins, and third-party tools that respected the player's time and effort. So, I failed to understand the problem with this petition. Fucking hell, why do we have to live in a world where there's a problem when a solution creates even more problems? The problem with, but this is the thing, he never even said this argument in the original video. He's just floundering. He's just made this up. I feel like, why wouldn't he have said any of this in the original video? MS Paint on top. Yeah, every single... someone mentioned this in the comments, and maybe I'm now parroting my own echo chamber, but someone mentioned that he always reaches for MS Paint and it seems to result in these kinds of videos and whatever else. Alright, I'm done. It was not done. Yeah, drew it in Paint. I think games should disappear and should be able to play the games. How does this only apply to future? This should only apply to future releases. That was already what was going to happen. Also in Vegas. Yeah, DEF CON's really cool. It really is cool. I like to watch all the videos coming out from that because they tend to tell me that everything is broken and everything is a massive vulnerability. And it literally, the only thing stopping the world from descending into chaos is the fact that people don't want to do it, which is mental. The fact that people disclose the vulnerabilities that they find and don't just end the world is peak humanity. It's great. But any company making a game should go out of their way to make a game that could ever not be playable. Well, yeah, exactly. Why would you build your software to end in 10 years, like the crew did? They knew the license agreements were going to expire in 10 years, and I'm sorry for the colours switching up my camera. It's the automated thing. Hope I'm not giving you epilepsy. But that's quite bad, isn't it? It's the white in it. Jesus. Right, maybe I'll wrap this up. I remember our thanks, so I said. I don't really see... Maybe this is Copium that be on this comment section for a while. We'll end it there. He never really addressed any of the main points that I had. He brought up new ones, which I don't think matter in this circumstance, and overall, my thoughts and feelings haven't really changed on the matter. But if yours have, leave a comment down below and let me know. This is Brawhammer signing out, and make sure to subscribe. A lot of you people subscribed in the last day. I've got about 10 new subscribers. It's great. If you like this React content, let me know. There wasn't really much software engineering insight that I could add to this that was in the last one, but let me know if you like the reaction either way. Have a good one, guys. I'll see you in the next one.